Alright, hello Internet, this is Scott, and I go by Tannewt online. I'm working on a system called Polystack, which is for multi-rotors. I'm going to be putting one on my Blackout, which is a quadcopter. The basic idea is that you can take a flight controller, this is the F4 version, and you can stack accessories on it. These are my radio receivers. And this is also a breakout, so it just breaks out a UART, or in this case, two UARTs. So the setup that I'm going to do today is this basic one. My main goal is to maiden this F4 FC today. So I'm going to put this on the board. This will eventually connect to my non-micro minimum OSD that I already had on the quad. I'm just going to stack it for now. I just want to go over, first and foremost, what you can expect to get, or what I'm thinking will go in the kits. This is subject to change because I don't do it yet, but what you can expect to get from me when you get a kit. Kind of each vertical column of this you would buy separately, except for this. So I guess it'd be fair to say that the standoffs, the nuts and these extra spacers may come with that. So I'm going to show you how I assemble these. Let's just go over what each board does first. So this is a Pololu power cradle. It's a bad version. Ignore a lot of it's different. So yours will look different than this. And the general idea though is that you have this 20-pin power connector. And that 20-pin power connector goes to the bottom of the flight controller, and that provides all the flight controller, all the power, and everything in the stack with 5 volts. So this is a 5 volt, 2.5 amp Pololu regulator. You can also fit the 1 amp on there just fine. This is just a spacer, and it's the same PCB thickness as this. It's just meant to keep everything level as you stack it up. It is slightly asymmetric, so the side towards me is slightly bigger than the side away from me, and that's because of the minimum Oshpark thickness. So if you have trouble fitting the motor like the EC wires, you can flip it and it'll stick out a little bit. Otherwise you can have it so the thicker part is on the inside. So that is the very bottom layer that you have, and then this is a 1.5 millimeter stack height, and all the stack heights tend to be right next to the connector there. This one's covered a little bit. That's 3.5 millimeter. This is an old enough board that it doesn't have it yet. This is an example of a newer. This is the X4R cradle, and it's got 4 millimeters written there. So those two are 4 millimeters. Then this is also an old board, so it doesn't have it either. This will be 2 millimeters. In the end, this is actually a 1.5 millimeter connector though. So I'm just going to put it on top, and I won't stack anything on it. And in fact, I'm going to hook it up later too. So yeah, so what we'll do is we'll build it from the bottom. It's important to note when you stack the connectors, push them down vertically. Don't skew them or anything, because then you may like rip it off or do any other bad things to it. So just when you're connecting it, do it very vertically. You may feel like you have to give it more pressure to do that, but that's okay. Just be very straight about it. We've had the most trouble with the power connectors, but we're working on it. So by the time you get one of these, you shouldn't have any issues. So here's what we're working with. This is my Blackout. I haven't flown it in a while. But all the ESCs and the motors are all set up. I've also got some hash marks on here that you won't be able to see, but it tells me which one is which. So this is the FC power here, and then this is VTX power. So the very first thing that we need to do is we actually need to remove these old standoffs. The reason I want to remove them is because I need a larger bolt so that it can cover everything in the stack. So I'm going to remove these to start. And there are spacers in here that the blackout has, so I'm going to make sure and leave those. Leave those in. They're structurally important. Ooh. Yeah, hope this flies today. It's been a little while. I got an alien and I've been flying that, but I want to have 2 rigs going. Okay, so there's the standoff. Sorry, I'm doing this in my lap. I'm going to take the bolt out, and then I'm going to stick the new bolt in so that the spacer doesn't get lost. And then with the flight controller, you'll get a set of 4 nuts, and those are meant to go at the very bottom of the stack. And the nice thing about that is that once you get them on, then your bolts will stay in place. You don't have to worry about them falling out along with everything else. It just takes a little patience because the bolts are long. This is not something you should need to do very often. You may get different lengths of bolts, and that's because different quads have different heights. These are bolts I picked out before. So you can see here that they're not as tall as the nylon standoffs. These are 35 millimeters, so these probably leave us about 30 millimeters. Now I'm gonna do the other 3. Oh, and I guess the other thing I have to think about is my VTX sits above the FC, so what I think I'll do is I'll do a dry fit. After I get this second one in, I'm just going to see how my clearance is. If my clearance was bad, if I was hitting my VTX with it, what I would do is I'd just pick shorter bolts. I don't think I'm going to need the whole length of them given what I'm stacking on. The FC system's designed to be able to stack at least, or at most, like 7 expansions on top. But all of the cradles are really tall, so that makes it pretty difficult. Most of the cradles are 4 millimeter stacking height. That may not sound like a lot, but you add that to like the 1.5 millimeters of the board already, and it adds up pretty quickly. Okay, so here's the top. So I'm just gonna dry fit. My blackout is so dirty. Mini crashes into the grass. So it looks like it's gonna be close. I think I'm gonna rely on just being able to move it out of the way. We'll see there. Should have done this side, it'll be closer here. But oh well. We'll see how it goes. So I'm gonna do the other 2. See if I can do it here. Unlock my computer so I can see what I'm doing. Okay, so when I pull the bolt out, I'm going to lay it flat so that the spacer underneath doesn't shift. There we go. Sorry for the cough. I think it might be allergies. Boring, boring, boring. Okay, 3 down, 1 to go. Problem with these long bolts, they take a little while. Okay, so all 4 bolts are in. And let's just grab this for another test fit. My OSD is just hanging. It's taped to the top. There we go, that's better. Now it's in place. And let's look at that one spot. So that's a little bit in the way. Like something else is. There we go. So hopefully our stack's not going to be that tall. Figure that out shortly. But at least the bolts clear the VTX. Okay, so how do you do the stack? The very first thing that goes on the stack is your power. And the power goes out the back, like this. So, could do, it's pretty low. I didn't put any gap in there. So what I'm seeing is that what clearance I'm going to have for the ESC wires underneath. In my other build, I actually shift the height of the power board with these to get a little bit more space underneath the flight controller actually. But I'm curious to see if I can't just fit it. So very first 2 things I did is the spacer and the Polystack power board. And now I'm going to, there's 3 different heights of spacers here. These are 1.5 millimeter, these are 3.5, and these are 4. A good way to figure out which is you actually put them next to each other and you can see which one's slightly taller. I also like to use tweezers because they're small enough that they're kind of hard to get a handle on. Or a finger on, so to speak. So the Polystack power is 1.5. I'm just gonna see how that fit goes. Connector to the back. And if you have trouble pushing it down, it just needs to be really flat. So So it's awfully tight, but it might. Huh. So it's all connected, and it's super low. I might have just enough room. The cables are a little long, so I'm not sure what's going to happen to that. So when I remove it, I'm going to hold down the power board and just pull straight up. I think that's connected. Pull straight up. And let's give it, well, maybe I think I will just not do it that low. It's going to give me better clearances if I raise it up a little bit. So I'm going to remove these. If you have trouble pulling them off, you can just do it straight up. So these are 2mm spacers. I'm just going to raise up everything a little bit. Raise up the whole stack. If I run out of room, that's why. So I'm putting the power board. My screen keeps dimming, so I can't see if you can see me or not. All right, there's the power board, and we've got just a little more clearance. It's not a ton. We're all talking millimeters here, which is kind of wild. I'm gonna put the spacer, and now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put the FC back down, but I'm actually gonna connect the ESCs before I put it down, and the signal's on the inside. So I have a label that says top ground, where top is the furthest away, which makes it the bottom, which is kind of silly. I should think about that. So black should be on the outside. And I'm looking for the marks that I have on them to tell me which one's which. This one's 2. This one's 3. By the process of elimination. Okay, that's all set. Now I'm gonna squish it down. And I think what I'm gonna do when I squish it down is I'm gonna try to pull the ESC wires back underneath. And I can shove them, well, let's see. When you're doing this, oh, I forgot something. So I'm missing the spacers between the FC and the power board. Those are important. You don't want to. They ensure that when you push it down, it stays level, which is good for the connectors, and it also provides structural support to the stack. That's not just the connectors. The connectors are kind of delicate. When you're pushing down, make sure that you don't snag ESC wires between the board and the spacers like there. So wait to push it down until you're clear of everything. Okay, good. All right, so we got these sticking out, which is kind of annoying. But if I go underneath, I can snag them and pull them underneath a bit. You could also actually make them shorter, so this is doable. I'm planning on soldering direct, which will give me really good height. But I want to wait till VCP BL heli pass through is ready, and the designs are more mature. So I'm just pulling these back under. I'm just gonna store them down there. Maybe I'll actually put some tape too. This one in. Adding some tape here just means it won't get caught. Let's just do that right now. Just going to use some electrical tape. That way I can take it off when I no longer want it. Okay, so this is what I did. I'll show you. Just did some electrical tape over that hole. So now it's all consolidated. It is still kind of springy, so it's not anchored down yet. So be aware of that as you stack things. If you turn it over, it can fall off, which is annoying. So now we're going to do the 3.5 spacers, because that's both the F3 and the F4 boards are 3.5 millimeter height. 2 of that is the height of the FC, and then 1.5 of that is the height that's allowed for the thing that's above it. So the next thing we're going to put on is this radio cradle. This is the D4R2 cradle, and it just goes straight on top. And you'll set it and it'll rock. It's rocking a little bit because the connector is not there. So just push firmly straight down on the connector, and now it's solidly stacked like that. Easy peasy. Configuration is super easy too. In the future it'll be automatic. It's not actually yet. So now we're doing 4 millimeter spacers. This is the easy part. And we're going to do the dual serial breakout, even though we're not going to use it yet. And again, the connector is just a little tall, so you just have to push it straight down. And lastly, we put the top nuts on. So this is what will hold everything down. And it's faster than the bottom ones. And you can see we have, 5 or 6 millimeters, maybe more. I guess more like 10 that we have to play with. So we could actually put another expansion on here, like a black box, and still have room. Certainly have enough connectivity to do that. We wouldn't run out of hardware serial or anything. This F4 board has 6 hardware serial, so it should be plenty. Famous last words. Okie doke. We're doing on time. This is together. And just tightening these nuts. Don't need to over tighten them though too. I need to plug it in. Double check black to black, blue to red. had blue. Oh, but this one's loose. The red one popped out, which is bad news. Go in. Pushing the silicone wire in is a pain. Go. Try it again. Ah, I did it again. Super annoying. Wonder if I can plug it in and now push this side in. There we go. There we go. So that's connected. So overview, here's our flight stack. ESC wires are coming in the bottom there. We've got the Polyloop power board with the 2.5 amp Polyloop power. We've got the spacer here to keep it nice and even. We've got the 1.5 millimeter spacers. We've got the F4 flight controller. You can see the USB and the reset button are here on the side. That's because you put the back here. On top of that is the D4R2 cradle. Well, 3.5 millimeter spacers, D4R2 cradle, 4 millimeter spacers, and then the dual serial breakout, which is currently not connected to anything, but I'm going to test it by connecting it to my Minim OSD. So now we're going to put the top part on. And this is how I do my radio go out the side there. And out this way. Looks good. Our clearance of the VTX is fine. It's just sitting between the bolts. Do you need to plug that in? So I'm using tweezers to plug the power into the VTX. Click. And we're pretty much assembled. I just have to put the top bolts on and put these through the heat shrink there. But we should hopefully be able to maiden today, which will be quite exciting. Not run race flight on anything, so we'll see how that goes. There you have it, flight stack on a blackout. Thanks for watching.